Hey guys, this is Fady from Harvey Productions and welcome to another video. In today's video, we'll be talking about EQ, specifically my personal favorite EQ. EQ in general, if I have only one tool that I can only use one tool in the studio and mixing and editing and all that stuff, I would choose EQ. And if you would leave me with an option to only use one EQ, and this is the only EQ that you can use, then this is it. We'll be talking about the FabFilter Pro Q3. This EQ is absolutely phenomenal. It's a game changer in your studio. And we'll be digging deep into that EQ, all the features, specs, how to use it, some practical application. I have a Pro Tools session in here that we're just going to go through and then put the EQ on different things and understand what it can do and all the possibilities for that EQ. Before we dig in, let me address this really quick, and it's very important to understand this part. When you are dealing with EQs, there's obviously many different companies, many different brands. In my personal experience, this is how I like to classify them. So I use something called transparent EQs that I use for subtraction, which these are the EQs that does not affect my color, does not affect my tone. They're very transparent, and I use it mostly for subtraction to cut frequencies that I don't want. And the FabFilter goes under that category. And then I have other EQs that add color and they add more texture and they have their own signature, like the SSL EQs, like the Pultec EQs, like the Manly EQs. Whether they're analog EQs or digital EQs, like over here, I have like a Pultec EQ, which is a tube EQ. I have a separate video on this and how I use that to boost frequencies. Or I have a solid state Pultec EQ here from West Audio on my 500 series rack. Or in plugins, I use a lot the UA Pultec EQ as well as the SSL channel strip EQs and a bunch of others, the BAX by Dangerous Music, which these are more EQs that I would use if I want to boost and emphasize specific frequencies because they have a color and a texture and a tone to them. But for what we're doing now, that EQ, I probably would use 99% of the time. The Pro Q is going to be my subtraction EQ. I call it like the surgical device because what it is, it literally surgically cut those specific frequencies that I want to get rid of without affecting my tone much. So enough talking, let's dig in. Here's a Pro Tools session. Let me open one of those instances of that EQ and let's kind of talk through it. So they actually have a full screen feature, which is really cool. So press right here. So you guys can see it now. It's a lot easier to see. So it's a full screen. I'm going to, let me just reset that EQ to factory default. So this is when you open the EQ, this is what you get. You can make it into a full screen like I just did right now. You can also go in here and scale it into different scales, or you can also, so here's like medium, very large, and then full screen. I'm going to keep it on full screen so you guys can see with me. 0 dB on the right side is the decibels for, and you can choose how you want to see this. Is it in 3 decibel increments if you're doing like really simple minor adjustments, 6 decibel increments, 12 decibel increments, or 30 decibel increments. So if I'm going to do like some really intense EQ curves and cut a lot, I'll probably go with the 30 or the 12. But if I use that EQ on my master fader and I want to do such a gentle, subtle EQ, I would put it on the 3 dB. Let's just leave it at the 12 right now, so somewhere in the middle. Up here you can have AB reference. So basically I can set an EQA and then I set an EQB, and then I just go back and forth to reference which EQ I prefer the most, which most EQ companies have that. They have undo and redo. Then they have lots of presets in here that you get to choose whichever preset that you want or start from scratch. At the bottom here, you can see the latency, zero latency, natural phase, and linear phase. And then it has a MIDI learn, which I personally never use that. And then at the bottom here, we'll get to that when we talk about the dynamic EQ, because that's where the dynamic EQ comes in handy. Okay, what sets this EQ apart? Or what do I love about it? Number one, it's a very CPU friendly EQ. You can have so many instances in your computer and you don't have to worry about CPU. Number two, it's very transparent and very clear. Number three, it provides EQ, it provides dynamic EQ, it provides mid-side EQ. Also, it provides only left or only right side EQ. So I feel like for me to achieve the results that I would want to do with this one, I would normally have 3 or 4 different plugins on my chain to get to that final result. Now I can do that with just one EQ on the chain. There is probably not a single channel in my whole mix that does not have one instance of this. Sometimes I literally load my template with this as the first EQ and I leave it across all things just flat. And if I need anything, I just go to it and tweak it a little bit. That's how much I use this EQ. Going back here. Okay, let's see what channel we're on. Which EQ did we open? Oh, so, overheads. Okay, let's start with something like a guitar because that requires more. So like this. And let's grab the EQ on that guitar and let's flatten it. Okay, so to create bands, you just kind of go where you want to go, and then you can see that little thing moving, and then you press it. And then double click it, it added a band in here, added a band in here, added a band in, and you can add as many bands. So this is, I added 3 bands right now. Let's now choose what that band is going to do for me. So I'm going to go to this band, and you can see here's all the different formats of that band between curves and bells and shelves and all kinds of stuff and notch. So I'm just doing a curve band. Here it is. Then it's just basic EQ controls where you can control the Q. And the way to control the Q, I hold Command, and then I push it up or down. And then that's how you grab it big and wide. Then you grab the band itself, push it up or down. And then this EQ has an analyzer, graphic analyzer. And then you can see here at the bottom, I tell it to see my graphic analyzer is pre or post. So I'm doing it post, which means that graphic analyzer is going to change with me as I'm applying that EQ. So it shows me the results after the EQ application. Okay, another thing you can, which I use that feature all the time, solo a band right here, and then so I have a lot of 1K in that guitar, which is a pretty common frequencies in a lot of electric guitars. So I'm gonna delete this band. So now I want to clean that up a little bit. So here you go. I'm cutting about, I'm gonna go a little drastic in here. Here's about 6 dB. I mean, I can hear the difference, but if I would use like an SSL EQ and cut 6 dB, the difference would be more. So this is more subtle, which I like because I can do a lot of surgeries and it's really subtle, not a drastic effect of tone. Now, what if I want to make it a dynamic EQ? So I'll grab that same band and I want to cut 3 dB, fully cut 3 dB. I'm going to right click on it and make dynamic, and now becomes a dynamic EQ. And I'm going to pull that down to the 6 dB. What does that mean? It means that I'm cutting only 3 dB, but then when it hits a specific threshold, it will cut again up to another 3 dB. So let's watch now. And then right down here are the controls for that dynamic EQ. Here's my threshold, and I can adjust my threshold. So now it's like cutting it all the time pretty much. Versus, I love that feature. I use that all the time. I have a singer and in that singer there's a specific note. When he hits that note, I get a really sharp frequencies in there. So I just put the dynamic EQ, adjust it to only that threshold, so when it hits, it does it for me, and then boom, I got it. Okay, now I got, so we talked about band, talked about EQ. Let's just create another band in here, and then we're gonna make this a shelf. So here's the shelf, and then same thing, command that adjusts the Q of that shelf. I don't need those really high pass, the 10K in that guitar. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of that. Then I'm gonna add another one in here, and I'm gonna make it a low cut, and then I get to choose how steep that curve is. And then I'm going to cut all the way to 100. Okay, now I wanna clean up a little bit of the low mids, so which I'm gonna find it in that guitar. Right there. I'm just gonna cut about 3 dB, and I'm gonna, actually a little bit more, and I'm gonna make it dynamic, and then I'm gonna cut even further. Now let's just bypass that EQ on and off. I already like where this is going. Okay, another thing I do a lot. Okay, let's talk midside now. I love that feature in this EQ, and it is an absolute game changer. And what does it do is that I am more in control of these frequencies that I'm cutting, but instead of cutting the frequencies across all board, I now can even control, I want to cut these frequencies in the middle of my stereo image, or I'm going to cut it from the sides. And I do this a lot, for example, with electric guitars, that I got my lead singer in the middle of my stereo image. He's dead mono, dead center. And then I love where my guitars is, but I want to scoop some of that frequencies in the middle of my image to create space for the singer. And then, but I don't want to affect the entire guitar tone. I want the sides of the guitar to be full. So I would, for example, at 3K, I'm getting a little bit of harsh frequencies from the guitar. So right here. Which is very likely will clash a little bit with the vocalist. Instead of cutting all of it so I can get rid of a lot of the presence of the guitar, I will go to that band and I'll right click stereo placement, and I'm gonna say put it in the middle. Now I'm gonna only cut that frequency from the middle range. So, and I'm gonna show you guys the difference. So here is, let's just go a little drastic. So I'm cutting like 6 dB from the middle. And then I'm gonna, here you go, let's listen to it. And then let's copy this. Let's put it to the other one. And then in this one, I'm gonna make it just stereo. So we have two options. One is middle, one is stereo. And I did this so we can A/B it. And listen to how it's going to sound when it's in the middle. You'll realize it's subtle, but when I go to stereo, it will scoop a lot from that guitar and you will lose a lot of the guitar tone. So here is the middle. You can tell the stereo one, I lost a lot of the crispiness of that guitar. All that top end, I feel like it became like this, kind of like I covered it. So sure, that kind of created more space for the singer, but that affected the guitar tone too much. So I would use the middle one and scoop some of these frequencies to kind of clean up a little bit for the singer. And then another trick that I do is, I'm kind of sharing some of my tips in here while we're learning the EQ, is I go to the low mids of that guitar and I cut from the sides. instead of cutting from the mids, because I want that wide stereo guitar image, but I want the sides of the guitar to be more crisp and clean, and I don't need that low muddiness in the sides. So I'll go find what frequencies I'm looking for. Right there at that 500. I don't need those as much in the sides, so I'm just going to scoop that from the sides a little bit. It kind of cleans up the sides of the guitar and it creates a little bit cleaner stereo image. Now another feature in this, and I can obviously do these sides and the mids, I can also do them as dynamic EQ. Another cool feature in here, which happens a lot of times when I get guitar tracks, the guitar player recorded 2 amps, and then I get a 1 stereo track file, and then 1 amp is so much brighter than the other amp, or vice versa. 1 amp has, but I want to put an EQ, and I don't want to like split them into 2 separate files and process each one different. I just want to treat it as a stereo file in my session. But all what I need to do is I want to make the left side slightly brighter to match the right side. Okay, in a case like this, I will go here, go create an EQ shelf. So here's an EQ shelf, and I'm gonna boost maybe 3 or 4 dB, and then I'm gonna right click in stereo placement and I choose what do I want to boost, and I only want to boost the left side of that guitar. So here's left. It's starting to look complex, but that's kind of the beauty of that EQ. You could do so much. Like I have right now, if I look at this EQ that we're cutting at 300 hertz, about 3.7 dB, and then we're applying a dynamic EQ on top of that that cuts up to about 7 dB. Then we're cutting 500 from the sides only. Then we're cutting 1K with a dynamic EQ. Then we're cutting about 3K only from the middle, and then we're scooping a little bit of the top end past 12K, and then we're applying a high shelf to make the left side of that guitar louder. This is not necessarily what I need to do with that guitar, because that guitar doesn't have left side is louder, but I'm just showing you all the possibilities of that EQ and all what you could do with it. And then when I right click on a band like here, you get to see all the controls of that band. I can delete the band, split it. I can choose if it's left or right or mid or side or just a stereo. I can adjust the slope of that band. I can adjust the shape of that band, make it a dynamic. I can invert the gain, which kind of puts it at the bottom. Like, I mean, the invert the gain is how you would go grab a frequency and then just flip it, so that way you can eliminate it from your thing. Another cool, which not a lot of EQs have this. I'm gonna grab a stereo here. This is a bell. And I'm gonna change it from bell to this one, which is a notch. And you guys can see, like I can't even see the bottom of it. It's basically cuts that all the way down. And I normally, when I do this, I make it very narrow. And the idea of this, I'm finding a very specific, like I did this, for example, this is handy for a snare drum that you're getting a ring. And I don't like the ring from that thing. I just wanna find that where that ring is happening exactly, and not just scoop it a little bit. I want to completely notch it out. And you can see it's cutting a lot at this point. It's cutting about 12, more than 12 dB actually. So I love that option. You can see here it's cutting pretty much all the way down. Another one that I really like is this, which to like get your telephone effect and something like that, I could just put that right here. One EQ kind of curve looks like this, and then it does the whole thing for you, which is pretty cool. I use that a lot for like post-production stuff like that. And then these, just high shelf, cut shelf, right at the same. Let me just clear that EQ default settings, so that way you can see it. Here is this. Here is that one, which is really handy. we showed this one. This is just high cut, low cut, and then top shelf, and then a bottom shelf, and then all of our bands. So this is kind of all the shapes and the bands. Okay, another thing in that EQ I absolutely love. So let's grab here. I'm soloing my electric, and I'm going to solo my piano. So I got both playing, and I want to mask, and I want to see where the frequencies are coming from one to the other. So this one is called electric rhythm, and this one is called piano, and they both have the fat filter EQ. We obviously messed with the EQs right now. So here is this, sorry. And here's this. This is the piano EQ. Let me just put a quick EQ in here. I'm just gonna cut some 500. So here's the left side is this one is the guitar EQ. This one is the piano EQ. Okay, what I can do is I'm gonna just grab the guitar EQ, make this the main one, and I'm going to my analyzer in here, and I'm going to select the piano. Here it is, and I'm gonna press that. And you see that little light is being lit now. And now in that one EQ window, I see both EQs. So the red is the piano, and then the other color, the white clean color, that's my electric. And why is that handy? Because now I can see both in the same thing, and I can make decisions on that electric based on what I'm hearing on the piano. I do this a lot for vocals. I grab the vocal and the electric because they clash sometimes, and then I could see where these frequencies in the vocals are happening, and I'm scooping a little bit of these frequencies from the electric to create space for the vocals. And you can preview as many as you want. Like here is this one, and I can also this shows you all the EQs that I have, an instance of that EQ in my session. So I can just put it my electric guitar lead EQ as well, or I can keep changing, see which one do I want to see, and then keep making decisions accordingly, which is really nice. There's also an EQ match feature. I've personally never used it, but that's another cool feature in here that allows you to do that as well. Okay, let's take a look at that EQ, clearing all my solos in here, on my mix bus. You guys can see now my mix bus EQ is super subtle. Like nothing is happening more than 3 dB. So I can even do this so you can see it more. And you can see I'm leaving the EQ, almost all of them are being left at 0 dB, and I'm just using the dynamic feature, except here at 750, I'm cutting 1 dB, and then here, right there, is the same trick where I'm getting a little bit of the low mids mud out of my mix only from the side. You can see here it's cutting only from the side. So here's like with the mix bus. This is kind of the mids, the low mids that I don't want only on the sides. I'm cutting them out. You can see that one is really engaging with every snare hit because it's kind of helping with the snare a little bit. And this is kind of an example of how I would have that on my master bus, and very, very, very gentle, not a lot of heavy processing. Another cool feature in that EQ that I really like, if I have frequencies playing and I move the mouse and hover on it, it will freeze that and show me where's the peak points in my mix, for example. So we're on the mix bus right now, so I'm just going to play the mix bus. This is not done at all. I'm still working on it. So see what happened now is it froze that image for me, and now I can see on my mix where my peaks are. I have a little bit of a peak at 12K, a little bit at 1.5, 900, and these are where my peaks. So then I can potentially go in here, for example, the 2.8K. I'm just going to go here, create a 2.8K band, make it a little bit dynamic, and then just do like that. And let's play the same section again. You can see now that the 2.8 peaks that I had are kind of gone and are a little bit cleaner. Let's apply this on the 12K right here. Because you see, you can literally just grab this and do that. And this is how much you would need to bring that to zero. Which is, this is a lot on the master fader. Probably won't put that much, but it's kind of like helps you to make a decision. You see that 12K boost or peak that I had is completely gone. Let's take that idea and apply it to a guitar, because this is, honestly, this is one of the best game changer features in here that a lot of people don't understand or know about it. I'm going to take let's take a piano, because we've been working on the guitar for a while. Here's my piano, and I'm soloing that piano. You can see there's a lot of that 900. I already have some cleaning, but a lot of that 939 hertz. Literally, it kind of does the work for you. I'll go to this, I'll grab it, and I'll just push it down a little. And then let's now play it again. Okay, I'm gonna grab that 1.5K. And then what I'm gonna do, instead of cutting too much like this, I'm just gonna turn this into dynamic, and I'm gonna turn this into dynamic. It's like having the EQ tell me where the it's kind of cheating, honestly. Tell me where the frequencies are that needs a little bit of treatment, and it even shows you how much you need to cut to get rid of these peak notes. You can see it's a lot gentler on the top now, but I'm seeing a little bit of the low mids at 300 and 188. I'm just going to cut that a little bit down. You can see now a lot of the harsh frequencies are gone. I just have a little bit left in here, a little bit left at the 700, but I'm making decisions based on this. I stop on it, I stop the mouse on it, it kind of freezes that frequency for me, and then I can see everything, and then I can just make some informative decisions according, and obviously use your ears for all of it. Anyways, I think this is a wrap for this EQ. I absolutely love this EQ. It's worth every penny to purchase and to use in your session for all the features that we've talked about today. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, make sure that you put them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. And if you need any help with your studio setup or doing an audio consult, make sure to email me. My email is in the description below, and I will schedule an audio consult Zoom with you. And until I see you guys at the next video.